The member for Blair.
My question is to the Prime Minister. I refer to revelations in the media that the Minister for Home Affairs' ability to cancel criminal visas is being challenged in the federal court because of serious doubts about his eligibility under Section 44 of the Constitution. Given that all sides of politics support cancelling the visas of dangerous criminals and deporting them, will the Prime Minister now refer the Minister for Home Affairs to the High Court to remove any doubt over the Minister's decisions?
The Prime Minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm asked about cancellation of visas by the member. Mr Speaker, I can inform the House that the Minister for Home Affairs does not have responsibility for cancelling of visas. That power is actually held by the Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Multicultural Affairs. So the Shadow Minister may wish to pay attention to when ministries are announced, because these things are set out very clearly. But I'm asked about cancellation of visas because it is true, Mr Speaker. It is very true, absolutely true, that this government has cancelled the visas of 3,000 criminals, Mr Speaker. As Minister, I cancelled them, other ministers cancelled them, Mr Speaker. Bikies, murderers, rapists, we cancelled their visas, Mr Speaker. Now, the member for McMahon and the member for O'Connor, I remember when they were the Minister for Immigration. I remember when I became the Minister for Immigration, one of the first issues that were raised with me was about a certain Australian, he wasn't an Australian actually, he was a visa holder, Mr Speaker. They never liked me talking about Alex Vella. They never liked me to talk about Alex.
The Manager of Opposition Business on a point of order.
Yeah, on direct relevance, Mr Speaker. I've waited for there to be substantial time for a preamble. The question is not a general question about visa cancellation. It goes specifically to the serious matter of making sure that cancellations that have been made by the Minister for Home Affairs have full legal protection, and then asks whether a High Court referral will be made to be able to clear that up. It is not a general question in the way the Prime Minister is answering it.
Just as I'll rule just before I call the Prime Minister back to the dispatch box, I listened carefully to the question. I appreciate the point the Manager of Opposition Business is seeking to make. The member for Blair did refer to newspaper articles about the cancellation of visas. That was certainly my recollection of it, unless the Manager of Opposition Business wants to say otherwise. Yes?
To that point, Mr Speaker, the revelations in the media are that the Minister's ability to cancel those visas is being challenged in the federal court.
Visas, that's right.
Yeah, but it's specifically about his capacity to be able to do that the question goes.
Yeah, I appreciate the point the Manager of Opposition Business is trying to make, and I mean I don't judge the factual accuracy of questions, but I don't mind pointing out it's not the Prime Minister's power to refer anyone to the High Court, it's this House's power. So I'm not going to nitpick, but given that was in the question and the Prime Minister very early on referred to the Minister for Immigration, I think he's still in order. Simply in the 3 minutes, the Prime Minister needs to remain relevant to the topics asked in the question. And I think there were 2 topics that were asked. The Prime Minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I was referring again to cancellation of visas, and I made the very clear point that under our government, the Minister for Immigration and Citizenship and Multicultural Affairs is responsible for visa cancellations. He is the one in our government who has responsibility. But, Mr Speaker, he says now, and it's true, that I used to be the Minister for Immigration and Border Protection, Mr Speaker, and one of the first issues that was brought to my attention was a certain Alex Vella, the president of the Rebels bikie gang, Mr Speaker, and I cancelled his visa, and he's never come back to these shores, Mr Speaker, and that started a long list, Mr Speaker, of actions by our government to ensure that we did the right thing on visas. Now, Mr Speaker, when I cancelled Alex Vella's visa when he was away from Australia, ensuring that he could not return, it became very well known to me that this was a matter that authorities had been seeking governments to take action on for some time, Mr Speaker. It was a matter that they... And, Mr Speaker, I know for a fact that the former Ministers for Immigration never had the decision to cancel that visa, and nor did I, Mr Speaker. You know what I had to do? I had to ask for it. I said I wanted to see the cancellation papers for Alex Vella's visa, and so I took that decision. You could have taken that decision. You didn't. You scripted it. That's why Australians cannot trust the Labor Party when it comes to immigration and border protection. You can trust Australians can trust the coalition when it comes to defending our national security. That's why we're going to introduce temporary exclusion orders. That means foreign fighters will not be able to come back into this country, Mr Speaker, unless it's on our terms. We're taking the right decisions on national security.
The member for Fairfax.